Hey, soul sisters. I am absolutely thrilled to bring this show to you. I am actually interrupting our chakra clearing series just for some freshness and because I just think you will really love this story. This is an interview I did with a gentleman named Ryan West who has overcome a brain tumor. And he's the first guy we've had on the show. And he's got a really amazing story and a lot to share. And I'm just really excited for you to be able to hear his story. So I'm going to just share this with you mid-chakra clearing series. So hopefully you've been enjoying the lower three chakra awakening exercises that you've been doing and that I've been sharing with you, and hopefully that's making a difference in your life. And now hopefully this will make a difference in your life. If you have some friends or some family members who may be going through cancer or a traumatic illness or something like that, I would love it if you just shared this with those people, because anything that we can do to bring inspiration to people who are extremely challenged and to help people know that there is a way out. Like, it's not everybody's path to recover, but it is everybody's path to become empowered. So if we can just bring empowerment to people, then maybe recovery can happen. I've seen recovery happen in myself. I've seen recovery happen in my patients. I've seen recovery happen in people in my family and my friends, and we just have to remember that that's available to each and every one of us. And well, at least empowerment is available to each and every one of us. So thank you for spreading the word, and thank you for spreading empowerment with me, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, Dr. Brandy here. And one of my favorite things to do is to help women truly enjoy their bodies, to feel healthier, to turn back the aging clock from the inside out, to enhance their energy throughout the day, and to help them feel sexier no matter what age they're in. This is all accomplished through a process that we take together, but we begin with a personalized health assessment that identifies your toxicities and your deficiencies and the spiritual and emotional blocks that may be getting in your way of you living your own life on fire. And what I've found is that there's always room for optimizing your life, regardless if you're a career woman at the top of your game, a mom who has kids leaving the nest, or an athlete that feels that he's at peak performance. There is always room for optimization. And if you're interested in learning how to optimize your own life and would like to see if you're a good fit to work with me one-on-one, there are a few spots that I've opened up, and I wanted to make this available to my listeners of the Turn Your Soul On Radio community first. So if you'd like to apply, head on over to my website, drbrandyvictory.com/activate. That's ACTIVATE. drbrandyvictory.com/activate, and that's Brandy with a Y. And fill out the form. You'll be given an opportunity to connect with me, and we can have a deeper conversation to see if it's a good fit. So thank you so much for being a part of the Turn Your Soul On Radio community, and I look forward to the potential of going forward on your wellness journey with you.
You are listening to Turn Your Soul On Radio. I am your host and visionary doctor, Dr. Brandy Victory, and my mission is to assist high-achieving women in closing the gap between feeling unfulfilled to living a life on fire. It is time, ladies, to champion our own lives and turn ourselves on. This is Living Victoriously, ladies. This is how you turn your soul on. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And, but he's also overcome some really incredible things. And I just felt like his story is so inspirational that I couldn't help but share it with you ladies. So I'm just going to give you a little intro here. Ryan West is a brain tumor survivor. He literally survived a freaking brain tumor. I mean, Ryan, that's incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I can't wait to talk about it. And I'm honored to be the first male to be on the show. I think what I've learned, specifically with a brain tumor, any illness, when you go through that, you have an extra gear. You just got to figure out how to use it to make even more successful. And that's really what it's all about. So I'm very happy to be on, very honored to be on, and can't wait to talk through all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Ryan also suffers from a disease called acromegaly. And I think he's going to describe to you what that is. And he's also, thank you for your service, Ryan. He is a U.S. Navy veteran.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much. So Ryan likes to use his experience to help spread motivation and inspiration to people who are suffering. And, the essence of this show is to help women know that they can too. So many people, even with my coaches, I look up to my own coaches and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gods, they're angels, but they're human too, right? We're all human and we're all going through things that are very difficult and challenging. And there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of, hardship and there's a lot of trauma. And through all of that, we grow into the people that we want to be. And Ryan has just really made a huge step in his well-being to overcome brain tumor and to be living with acromegaly and to now be really working so hard to make sure that other people have the inspiration to move through their illness and their disease. So Ryan's also in the podcasting family with me. He has a podcast called Revealing Healing, and you can find that on iTunes and some of your other, I don't know, are you on Stitcher, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm on Stitcher and Spotify. The only one I'm not on yet is iHeart. I don't know what the delay is there, but yeah, specifically for the other large ones, I guess, Spotify and iTunes, obviously, and Stitcher.
Nice. That's Revealing Healing. And he has people on there. He interviews people like we're doing now with motivational health stories. So if you would like a little inspiration in your life, definitely head on over to Revealing Healing podcast. All right, Ryan, why don't you just kind of drop into your health journey, describe for us what acromegaly is, and we'll go from there.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you again, Brandy, for having me on. I appreciate it. And I hope your audience is engaged by some of this, because what I kind of went through with my health journey is what actually got me to where I am today, which I think is a key thing when you go through something. If you can turn it around and use it to your favor, that's always the yin and the yang, so to speak, going way back. But so yeah, I graduated from high school in 1994, and I'm from Iowa, central Iowa, Des Moines area actually, and decided really I wasn't going anywhere really fast. So before I knew it, I was joining the military, and I left for boot camp in November of 1994. I hadn't really been out of the state much. I'd never been on a plane. I kind of sound probably like a hillbilly, but because we did have cars and running water in Iowa at the time, but I just really had never left the state. And so it was an experience going into the service for sure. I went to boot camp in Great Lakes, which is just north of Chicago, and actually is the only boot camp now for the Navy. But after boot camp, which is like 6-8 weeks, I went to a schooling to kind of get you ready to be sent to wherever your duty station is. And in my case, I was going to a ship, and my actual ship was the USS Abraham Lincoln. It's an aircraft carrier. At the time, it was stationed in Alameda, California, which is right in between San Francisco and Oakland, if you're not familiar. But so I get through boot camp, I go through the schooling, and then I'm going to California, just like that. Before you know it, 3-4 months earlier, I was sitting at home doing nothing. And then all of a sudden I'm in a Navy uniform, and I'm standing next to the most enormous ship I've ever seen in my entire life. But, going into the military at that time, there wasn't a lot going on. Certainly not after post 9/11, where you have all these individuals coming back with PTSD and just severe trauma, no matter whether it's physical or mental. And so it was a different time. We worked hard, and we also played hard. We drank hard, quite honestly. It's just kind of what you did. And in as far back as I can remember, it started in late 1996, early 1997, I started to develop some really weird symptoms. I had always really worked out, but I really started to become really strong. Like strong you see when somebody's on steroids. And it was kind of building. And when I would work out, it would even intensify more. And so the reason I can say that, I knew I was getting stronger, I was able to bench press like 225 pounds, like 35 times, and do all these things you see when these people go into the NFL, they go through what they call the combine. And so it just kind of progressed. And I thought, well, I must just really be working out pretty hard. And that must be what it is. Fast forward to about late October, 1997. In about a 3-week span, I went from having a natural overbite, just like most of you out there probably listen now, Brandy, you have now, just where your front teeth go over your bottom teeth. I went from that to an underbite in about 3 to 4 weeks time frame, meaning my bottom jaw actually grew out, straight out. So I went from having an overbite to an underbite. Wow. And at the time, it was obviously very weird and surreal. Now, I'm 22 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old at the time. And so I knew something was weird. I knew something was wrong. And I, through that time frame up to that point, I really hadn't been seen by a doctor, a Navy doctor, just through dumb luck. And the reason that kind of 3 or 4 week span is so vivid to me is because I was going to have knee surgery. I hurt my knee on the flight deck, and so I was having surgery, and so I was going to be off the ship for a month. And I remember driving with my buddy, who I still talk to this day, and he was in the service with me as well. And by this time, we were in Washington State, and he was driving me to a whole nother base to have surgery. And I was telling him, my bottom jaw literally has gone from an overbite to an underbite. And then by that time, I was pretty big. I mean, 6'4", 285, 95 pounds. Not so much the height, but I was extremely strong. I think I had like 6% body fat. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because there was something weird going on in my body. So
wait, Ryan, yeah. Ryan. So during like that 6-month period, did you see your body like kind of like you're on steroids? Did you see your body just getting bigger and bigger?
Yes.
Were you like going, wow, this is kind of cool because I'm working out to get bigger, but what's really going on? Yeah. Okay,
it is. Okay. But I would go through some really, really bad fits of rage. Like you hear when people are on steroids, they commonly refer to it as roid rage. And looking back on that now, I realize it. But it's because of what was going on that was creating that. And so, yes, I did. And it was noticeable by others, because I went home in the spring of 1997. And so this is before my jaw had grown, but people were like, God, you're insanely big, because when I left for the military, I weighed 210 pounds. And by now I'm 290 in just over about 2.5 years. So something was clearly going on. And so, and so then I have the knee surgery in November of 97. And this is where it kind of gets a little odd, a little weird, and where it's kind of driven home that I clearly have something wrong. In January, I went to the ship's doctor. So this is January of 1998, just for a checkup. And then they determined they needed to pull some of my wisdom teeth. And in that appointment, the Navy dentist said, hey, I think you have something little odd going on. You have larger than normal space between your teeth and between my teeth. And your tongue's larger. And then he looked at my hands, and my hands were larger. And he's like, I think you have something wrong with your pituitary gland. And that was it. It didn't go anywhere else. And so I was freaked out, and they took out my top wisdom teeth. Well, the reason they didn't take out my bottom wisdom teeth is because my bottom jaw had grown out so far that my wisdom teeth were actually lined up with the back of my top teeth by this time. So you got to kind of visually think of that, but it was really screwed up, and my jaw hurt, and it was just becoming this real issue. It became this running joke when I went back to what we called our birthing area. And when you're in the Navy or in the military and with your bunch of guys, you see and talk about stuff that you just wouldn't tell your mom. Okay. But I was joking. I said, hey, they said I have something wrong with my pituitary gland. What do you guys think I should do? Because it was really odd. I didn't get referred on for more treatment, quite honestly, and
Plus, you probably didn't even know what that was.
No, I had no idea. I was just, terrified. I didn't want to know. I was at that point, Brandy, I had about 8 months left, and I knew I was getting out. And when you get under a year in the service, and I think this is the case for most people who go in who know they're getting out, it's all you're thinking about is getting out. I was going to be by that time at 4 years. 4 years is a long time. So I was ready to move on from the military. And in the next 2 months, we were going on a major deployment, which they call a Westpac, which was for 6 months. And we were going to be over in the Persian Gulf. And so there was a lot going on. And so it became this running joke with me and my friends in the Navy, in the military at that time. We were calling it, they got switched from a pituitary gland to a pineal gland. So it became this joke. And because nobody knew what the hell we were talking about, right? So yeah. But here's now the symptoms really starting to heighten. So we leave for our Westpac out of Washington. It was in Everett, Washington at the time. Now the carrier is I believe it's in Virginia now. And I don't even think they have a carrier in Everett, Washington anymore. But I think we left in May. And when you go on a 6-month deployment, it sucks. I mean, you're gone for 6 months. You're off foreign soil. You stop in Hawaii on the way back, but you're gone for 6 months. And, my head started getting bigger. When I worked on a flight deck, I was a flight deck director. And so we're moving the jets around. It's really kind of a dangerous job. And you got all this stuff on, and specifically you have this cranial on. It's called a cranial. It's like a helmet. And then it's got a microphone on it, and you're talking, and then you're doing all this. It's 100 miles. It's orchestrated chaos, basically. But my cranial wouldn't fit. And as the summer months went on, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I was really, really tired. Now, when you work on a flight deck, especially when you're on a deployment like that, you get zero sleep. I'm talking, it's 17, 18 hours a day, every day. It's miserable. And so I knew something was going on. Fast forward to when I get out in November, a regular baseball hat doesn't fit me at this time now. So something's really weird. I get out of the service. I come back to Iowa. And people are like, man, you look just kind of different. And I think I freaked people out a little bit, quite honestly. But, it just I didn't do anything further about it, believe it or not. So about a year later, I'm with my mom, and my mom's really big on teeth because I never needed braces before any of this crap happened. And she's like, I think we should go have your teeth looked at, because it was just driving her nuts that I had this underbite. My teeth had become crooked. So we went, and long story short, we went, and this chain of events happened. The orthodontist is like, yeah, you kind of have a problem. I think he knew immediately. So he sent me to an oral surgeon, and the oral surgeon, like the next day, the oral surgeon is like, you have a pituitary tumor, but I want a brain tumor, but I'm going to forward you to an endocrinologist. So I go to the endocrinologist, and one thing led to another, and it was determined I had a pituitary tumor, brain tumor. And so that's right behind the front of your forehead. Your pituitary gland controls a lot of stuff. It's bad for both men and women, quite honestly. The actual brain tumor, after doing x-rays and MRIs and working and seeing the neurosurgeon, was about the size of a lemon. And so about 3 weeks after I was diagnosed, I had the surgery. The surgery is really odd on how they take out a pituitary tumor. They actually go up through the top of your mouth. Without showing you in person, it's kind of hard to explain. But what I had is acromegaly. And so acromegaly is basically giantism. And I didn't get it, allegedly. I don't know if I've ever came out of adolescence, Brandy, quite honestly, but I didn't get the height. Like you see a lot of these people who are really tall. Sometimes they have acromegaly. Andre the Giant, Tony Robbins has said,
Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Right. And Ryan, I just want to kind of just put something in perspective for people. Yeah. So the pituitary gland is this tiny gland inside the forefront, kind of the front aspect of your brain. And it's the size of a pea.
Yeah.
So for you to have a lemon-sized tumor on your pituitary gland, this is no joke.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty scary stuff. And it's probably could be said that my brain was the size of a pea as well, Brandy, but that's where the tumor was on the pituitary gland. And what it does, though, especially when one starts to get that large, two things are going to happen. Either one, it's going to explode, which that has happened before and people have lived, come to find out, which just sounds just really medieval when you think about it. But it was pushing in on my optical nerves because those are all up there too. And so, then you run the risk of losing your eyesight and just all of this, kind of crazy stuff can happen. So Yeah, since that time, I've come to become a pituitary gland expert based on all the drugs I'm on and the endless amount of stuff I've had to do. But so they take the tumor out about 3 weeks after. I have the same neurosurgeon today that I had then, Dr. Piper. It will be like a divorce when he finally moves on. I've had that happen with some of my other doctors. I don't know about you, but for your listeners, it's very traumatic. I think when that happens, you become attached to them. You know, when you put your life in their hands, you hate to see them go. So I've been very lucky with all of my doctors, extremely lucky. Even when I wasn't always happy with the information, they were always up front. I think that's the key thing with a good doctor. They're not going to sugarcoat. They're going to tell you that's not what people like sometimes. But so the tumor's gone. They test me again. You still have elevated growth hormone levels. So, you know, a typical growth hormone level is I believe it's between 250 and 500. At my height.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Ryan, how did the pituitary tumor go away?
So
did you have surgery?
Yeah, I did. Yep. I had 2 hours of brain surgery to remove it. And that's where they go up through the top of your mouth into your nose canal and take it out. And I was in the hospital for 4 or 5 days after the surgery. When they take the when they take the tumor out for this type of procedure, they actually then cut skin out of some part of your body. For me, it was right above my belly button. They roll all that up and then they pack that in your nose, believe it or not, because you have run the risk of your spinal fluid moving around. And so, wow. So for 3 or 4 days, I was in the hospital. My nose looked like I got hit by a car right in my face. And, you know, I remember the day before I came home, they had to pull that out. And it was like I believe it was like 10 feet rolled up, believe it or not, in there, but it's so tightly packed and it was extremely painful. But what? That's part of the process. And it's very kind of I've used this term already once, but it is very kind of medieval. The scary part is what they had to do to take these things out like 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, they were, I think, literally cutting right through your forehead. So they've come a long way with the technology, but yeah, it's quite the process. And then of course they take it out and you hope that it's gone, you know, that it's really not over. And so they send you home and believe it or not, I was up moving around and you just move on. And, I had to go back and get retested. And for anybody who's been sick and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you, the testing and waiting and retesting, it sucks. That's the worst part, other than the insurance, which is always a nightmare too. I got to put a plug in for insurance because everybody's familiar with that. But so I wait for the test. The tests come back and they're like, your growth hormone level is still elevated. Not as high as it was, but we took the tumor out. We know it was a success, but you still have cells of the tumor embedded somewhere up there in your skull. And so you're going to have to go on medication, you know, for as long as needed, which ultimately for me is going to be the rest of my life because I still have the same elevated numbers as I did even after the tumor was removed.
And so this is probably why you were growing so fast because your growth hormone was so high.
Absolutely it is. And it's why it's basically like a natural steroid. And so, you know, a normal growth hormone level is between, I should know this, forgive me, between 250 and 500. And at the height of what I had, I was at 1800. So it's pretty crazy. So it's pretty nuts what science can. And you know, if you know, I've certainly asked, well, where do these things come from? And, you know, at the end of the day, I think all the research I've done, and I'm not a neurosurgeon, so they're going to probably all tell me I'm wrong. I believe it's two things. One, it's hereditary. I really believe that. It may jump 10 generations, and it's or it's just a degenerative gene. You just don't know why. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You know, when I got back out of the service in 1990, late 1998, I didn't kind of mention this, but you know, the way I looked, I started to notice, I do look a little different. I don't know why in the Navy, I kind of wasn't processing it. I think maybe it's because it really took a dramatic fast lane from when I was, those last 6 or 7 months. And so I become really just really anal about how I looked. I couldn't wear a hat. My head was bigger, you know, all of these things when your body changes or alters, it really played a psychological effect on me, which I finally I've gotten over, which I'll get to. But yeah, I mean, and the story, unfortunately, with the tumor after that first surgery doesn't end there, because all along I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get this done, but I'm going to get my jaw fixed too. And so that was the whole process. I had to have braces put on, wear them for 2.5 years. Now, mind you, I didn't wear braces as a kid. I didn't need them. That's how bad everything was jacked up.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the surgery to fix my jaw was the more of the gnarly, if to be completely honest. That was actually done in Iowa City. The University of Iowa is in Iowa City, and it's a very big college for all things medical. It's a fantastic center. But that was an 8-hour surgery, or 7.5 hour surgery, excuse me. They actually go in, long story short, they went in, they cut the backbones out of my bottom jaw. They pushed my jaw back, wired shut. It's a whole process. That was, the swelling was so bad, it blacked both my eyes. It was a real kind of long process, but I was so excited to get it done, to just get some normalcy back in how I looked. You have to understand, when you change your smile, or you're afraid to show your teeth, or, I really feel for people when they're, if they don't get braces as a kid when they need them because of financial or whatever, they just don't get the opportunity. I get it. It sucks. And so, or anything that you need help with physically or mentally, but once you get it fixed, or once you making a peace with yourself that it is what it is, you got to move on, and you got to take all of that just headache and pain you had with it and turn it into creative energy. And so it's just like a lifelong thing. I go to the doctor. I mean, I go to the doctor now more than most of the nurses who work at the damn places, to be honest with you. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm on all kinds of drugs, and I have to get shots to block the growth hormone. Then I have to get testosterone shots because I don't have a pituitary gland. When they took the tumor out, it completely wiped out my pituitary gland. So
no kidding.
Yeah. So it's
wow.
So,
Ryan, just for the listeners here, just want to be clear that the pituitary gland is really, really important. It's known as the master gland because it's the master hormone controller of the whole freaking entire body, essentially.
Yep.
I mean, it does everything from regulate thyroid stimulating hormone, which tells your thyroid to produce thyroid hormones. It regulates your adrenals. It regulates your ovaries, your testes, your metabolism, your growth, your reproduction. For us women who are having babies, breast milk, and those kinds of things. I mean, it's a huge player in the body, and totally. To not have one, I can't even imagine what that would take to try to regulate all of those functions.
Well,
medication.
I totally agree. I in full honesty, as scary as it is to have acromegaly as a man, it is 10 times worse as a female. I mean, I've seen and met some folks who have had it when they're female, and it's one thing to be big as a man. It's a lot harder as a female. So I really feel, if you go through that, and it's luck of the draw. It's like winning the bad lottery, so it really is. It's just one of those uncontrollable things. And when you're going through that, with an endocrinologist is basically a blood doctor, a diabetes doctor, for lack of a better term, among a lot of other things, but it's just trial and error on a lot of stuff. Try this, do this, let's test again. It's just, you got to get really used to kind of being like that. I think though, when you go through that, I just didn't dawn on me till a few years ago, but when you go through a lot of that, it changes how you're able to handle other stuff, I think. And you're able to process things a little different. Doesn't mean you don't fly off the handle and all that, but you got to think about things in a different way. And of course, there's no real life expectancy with acromegaly. You can ask, they're not going to tell you though. It depends. The one thing I do worry about, in full disclosure, is I have to take a lot of testosterone, and I don't need it just because I want to, for all the reasons you hear a guy say, I want more testosterone. I just need it because I don't have any. It's like calcium for women. I lack it because of the gland being gone. And when you don't have testosterone, it has kind of the same effect for women. Without calcium, your bones become brittle. And so you don't know what it's going to do to your heart. And so it is what it is. Yeah. So that's the acromegaly story, kind of in a nutshell of how it all happened. And, you just use it to your advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I honestly, I didn't realize you were still suffering in that way and we're still having to take medication and all that. I didn't realize all that stuff about your
Yeah,
stories. Thanks for sharing that.
you're absolutely glad to
Yeah.
share it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people like, I mean, I've had my own fair share of illnesses and things like that, but I've been able to overcome them. Like I
Sure.
don't have to continue to be on medication, but there's a lot of people, a lot of my listeners I know for sure are in situations where they do have to continue to take medication just like you. And,
Yep.
you know, I appreciate you because I know where you're about to go in this conversation, and I appreciate you offering the support that you're about to offer because,
Yeah.
you know, I think that people who feel like they're stuck with the way it is, which, you know, for you, clearly you've done a lot of your work and there's just, if you don't have a pituitary gland, you have to have medication to supply what
Absolutely.
you need so your body works correctly. You know, there's other people who are on medication, like medication for diabetes type 2, that feel like they quote unquote need the medication because they need to regulate their insulin. However, diabetes type 2 is completely resolvable with diet and exercise alone. So, you know, there's also that fine line. I think it's really important to be aware and to wake up to whether or not you can affect more change in your life. And that's what you've done. You've come forth with these things that you're about to, I'm so excited to share with my listeners that have really gotten you to take your mind off of I'm a victim to my illness to I'm empowered to help other people.
Absolutely. Well, I totally agree. And I totally agree with everything you're saying. You know, the one thing I've found is when people are really sick, they don't always talk about it. When people think they're sick, they bring it up all the time. I think that's the difference between the two, you know, and so
it's true.
Yeah, I think it is the truth. And so, you know, you just, when you hear people say, oh, I got this and this, and like, oh, that's great. You know, I got to go to the doctor and get 500 shots and take 70 pills. But yeah, here's the real thing. Here's the real crux of it. So I full disclosure, I really battled mentally, psychologically, even after I had, you know, the jaw surgery. That was in 2002, I'm sorry, but really not fully healed till 2003. And, you know, except for this tumor, this is a really weird part too. I knock on wood, I don't get really the flu. I don't have colds. I had bad eyesight. I was able to get that fixed with corrective eye surgery. Lucky enough, I've had knee problems, but it's really weird. It's just like, I've always kind of wondered in my own, like, this is going to get really weird spiritually, but like before I was born, it's like, you know, whoever you believe in asked, hey, so what do you want? Do you want to get the flu and colds like every year, or would you just like to take this big brain tumor? And I'm like the weirdo that would say, let's just do the brain tumor. Then I don't have to worry about the flus and the cold, right? I always think like that in weird terms, but I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, Brandy. I got sick and tired of worrying about the way I looked and just, you know, the size of my head. It just really, and I'm not talking like, I don't have to, my head is not as big where I can wear the Napa hat, if you know what I'm familiar with, on the top of the trucks. I'm just saying, it's like, it was a different size and it just did psychologically screw me up. But about 7, 8, 9, 10 months ago, actually a year ago, I'm just like, I am going to figure out a way to take what I've gone through and just, I hate to say be profitable. I'm going to use my experience to get others to use their experience to help people, to inspire them. And if I can make it into a full-time career, even better, that's what I would love to do. And it was really going to the doctor's office all the time where I'm kind of like, you know, it would be really cool to interview people who have acromegaly, because it's really rare and you just don't meet a lot of people like that. And then it turned into, well, you know, what if I interviewed a lot of people who had brain tumors? Oh, there's a lot of those, because people who have brain tumors sometimes they don't know how to shut up. They can just talk forever. I don't know what it is, but like brain tumor folks can just go on and on and on. They're really excited. I think it's because, you know, I had somebody's hand on my brain. Did you? You know, but it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's just one of those weird things. And then it morphed into, okay, I'm going to try to talk to people who had cancer. And then it's like, now I want to interview anybody who's got a health crisis, no matter what that is, you know, whether it's domestic abuse or mental health or diabetes or whatever. If you figured out a way to get through a hell that you were living in, then somebody else needs to benefit from it so you can help them. And what I've really found is people are all about doing that. They just know naturally they can help others and they really gravitate towards that. But I was in those doctor's rooms. I'm like, I'm going to start doing this. I want to do this. So I was mentally making a note of all this, and this is the way I am. I've always thought, I don't mean this to sound arrogant whatsoever. I always knew that I was going to be able to do something big. I didn't know what, and I've only been doing 2 months of podcast scale. I'm not Joe Rogan by any means. I'm not Brandy by any means, but I always knew I was going to be able to do something to help others, to impact others, not just help, but impact. And so, I really didn't start getting into podcasts until late summer, early fall. And I was listening to Entrepreneurs on Fire. And, we've talked about this before with John Lee Dumas, and I kind of bought into everything he was saying. And because John's interviewed, I think, 17 million people somehow, some way. I mean, that guy's kind of set the bar so high for interviews.
No joke, man.
I mean,
thank you, John. We love you.
I don't know how that guy's he is doing it, has done it. I mean, I think he gets bigger every month. Yeah, he is. So, and he's very, very helpful. So, but yeah, and I just lucky enough, I caught that podcast and I was driving, and I'm like, okay, so I could try to do this. And then, the creativity that I've always had, and I'm really big on the arts and music and stuff like that. I just didn't know how to use it or use it in the right spot. And I think a lot of people go through that. And once I found that I can, just interview these people, I've made no money off doing any of the stuff I'm doing. But to get these people on and interview them, but to get the reaction from other people, that is the best part. It's like buying a present for somebody, right? And you give it to them and they love it. And when somebody emails, because I've got this a few times, and it's like, oh my, okay, that's exactly why I want to do it. That's like, and I know I wasn't even doing the best job I could on the podcast. So that's the cool thing. But everybody has that in them. And I think especially people who've gone through some trauma, and it doesn't matter what the trauma is. You've got through the trauma. Take that knowledge, take that desire, that you used to get through it, and apply it to something creative to not only help yourself, but more importantly, help others. And you're going to find this whole new world. And I just really believe it. All these resources are out there. We talked about Entrepreneurs on Fire. This is a perfect time with technology. And if you got the time, if you have the will to make the time, then sky's the limit on what you can do. And you just cannot say no. And honestly, Brandy, and with all of the people I've been fortunate enough to interview, they've given me the time to come on. The number one thing, and they all say this, two things almost all the time. They say, almost every time they say, if you are positive, you're going to make it happen. That's no difference if you're coming out of a health issue or you're starting your own business. They just believe in themselves. Key thing. And two, doing some type of physical activity with fitness. And it's those two simple things. And I know they're not that simple, but if you believe in yourself and you are hell bent on making it happen and you stay active, you're going to make it happen. So honestly, I've never said this, I guess, especially in a format like this, but I wouldn't change what I've gone through because it wouldn't have been allow me to do what I'm doing now. The last 2 months, actually it's longer than that because I really kind of got really into this full bore in November, but going live in March, it's been the most refreshing 7 months of my life. I've absolutely loved it. I mean, and I'm working on this stuff all night and on the weekends. It's just about trying to find other people to get on and express themselves. I feel like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like podcast is just this awesome new way of art. And the way you put it all together and you interview and you keep the podcast going as a host and then you package it and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So cool.
It is.
Yeah, I do. And I feel the same way you do, Ryan. I truly do. I even through all the crazy challenges that I've been through in my life, I would not change it. I wouldn't wish it on anyone else. And I certainly don't want to do it again, but I wouldn't change it. And I think it's so, so vital. It's a huge point. It's so important because, there's this place where it's like, oh, I'm a victim to my story.
Yep.
And if I'm a victim to my story, I don't believe that I could or you could ever get to that place where I'm grateful for the experience of my past history. So, and then that gratitude of being able to be grateful for it, the consistency and the motivation and the insistent movement towards realizing a greater level of health, whatever that is for yourself, is what it takes. And yeah, it takes moving your body, it takes eating the right food, but I think the bottom of all of that is shifting your mindset to a place of, you know what? Fuck this. I am not doing this anymore. I'm over it. I'm not going to talk about it to my friends that I'm sick or that I have this problem. I'm just going to do something to elevate myself.
Absolutely.
If it's call on other people, if it's hire a coach, if it's get a trainer, whatever it is, elevate yourself. And you got to get your head there and then start taking action.
Yeah, I totally agree. And thank you for dropping an F-bomb. I don't think anybody has a more fouler mouth than me, but I'm trying to contain myself on this interview. It's been amazing that I've been able to do it through my whole brain tumor story. But so I want everybody to know that.
Ryan, all of my shows are they're labeled explicit because my listeners know I'm going to let it fly. So, if it's an authentic expression of yourself, don't hold back.
Okay.
And, thanks for not having an F-bomb every other.
No, I mean, trust me, it's, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. So part of the weirdness of me, which there's a lot of it, but I wasn't on social media at all up until January of this year. I mean, I got on Facebook in like 2008 for like a week. I'm not doing it. I didn't want people to see what I looked like. I mean, it's really, this is like the most cathartic thing. I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm going 100 miles an hour. I put all these pictures out and I thought, okay, I'm waiting for it. And here's what happened. Nobody said a damn thing. And that's my point is don't worry about it. Like you just said, stop talking about it. Make it a challenge to yourself that if you're dealing with something or if you've dealt with something, you don't share it with people now. If you've made peace with it, you use all of that as fuel to get done what you want. It's time to move on to the next step each day, one day at a time. And how you get through all these podcasts and do all this stuff. I mean, you've done 3 times as many podcasts as me. It's just every day, one day at a time. And you start digging your way out of where you were. And before you know it, you have the opportunity to do some of these things like this, but you cannot dwell on those things. I get people have gone through some really hellacious stuff, no doubt about it. Whether it's abuse or you were domestic situation that was really bad, or you've had kids. It doesn't matter. If you're out of it now, you got to use it to your advantage, and you owe it to yourself and to the people around you to do more, to impact more. And that's really what it's all about. You have it in you. I really think that people go through like addiction and, some of those things where they're just in this revolving wheel of crap. I really believe that those people are the most creative people. They just have not found the path. And when they don't find it, they just go down the other path. And that's the addiction path. But man, if you can get them on the right train of thought and the right, and the right state of mind, they can do some really dangerous stuff in a good way. So, it's awesome. I love what you just said. I totally agree. You just shut up and do it. That's how you got to do it. And people are going to tell you no, and you're going to get rejected, and you just go on to the next thing. I don't know about you, but I the one thing I found with this when because trying to figure out, I wonder if they'd be a sponsor. No, we won't. That's kind of a lot of the answers I've got. But it's funny doing this whole thing. I've could give a shit less what people think. I'm like, I'm doing this because I know it's right. If it's not for you, okay, it's going to be for 10 other people. I think if you have that, or 80 other people, if you use the 80-20 rule, 20% of the people aren't going to care or listen. All right. I wasn't going for them anyway. But that 80% that I can impact, they're going to tell other people. And it's just this chain of event stuff. So yeah, you just got to believe in yourself. Yeah.
And regardless if it's starting a podcast or starting a piece of art or starting a routine of going on a hike or a walk every day for 15 or 20 minutes, it doesn't matter what it is, right? Yep. It's just do something else to shift yourself out of the frequency of victimhood.
Absolutely.
To whatever it is you've been experiencing. Yeah. And I really also, I want to say, I really appreciate, Ryan, you speaking about the piece around feeling, not great around how you look and not wanting to show yourself on social media and stuff like that. Because I know, but it just, from a woman's perspective, Absolutely. This is what many of us live with this every single day.
I know.
Because our quote unquote worth is often defined by how we look in America.
Absolutely.
And it's something I'm really advocating overcoming for women, and it's a big challenge. So you kind of know what it feels like to be a woman in a way.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's, geez, getting into the social, don't get me wrong. I was familiar with social media and all that, but you're right. You can't just look at Instagram. Who's got the shortest shorts on, who's doing the most butt lifts, that's what it is. But the funny thing is I think I've thought about this a lot since I started to get into this. I think there is a huge group of people out there though, that are looking for somebody who is real, who looks and acts like them, who they can relate to. And it's just a matter of finding that group and making an impact to that group. And then they can go make an impact to somebody else. I was fortunate enough to interview Eric Weinmayer, who was the first blind guy to climb Mount Everest.
Oh, wow, you did not.
Yeah. So, and that episode actually went live today. And sorry, I don't mean to do a plug there, but he. Oh,
yeah, it's definitely. Please do. This is great.
So everybody, you really got to listen to that episode. But this guy has done more stuff than he's climbed all the summits. He's kayaked the Colorado River, and he's blind. But the guy it's crazy, but the guy is always about getting other people to do it as well. Yeah, I did it, but it's not a movement unless we get more people to do it. That's the train of thought. You can tap into that and act like that. Sky is the limit on what you can do. So, yeah.
That is so true. Yeah. Well, cool. I thank you for all of that. We're kind of coming up. We've got a few more minutes here, and I know fitness is a really big piece of what you're doing, and we've kind of touched on that a little bit. But would you mind speaking a little bit about this app that you're building?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for asking, first of all. So I'm pretty excited about this. So on June 28th of this year, so clock's a ticking here, I will be releasing the Resistance Assistance Fitness Made Easy app. And the whole premise of the app, you can download it on no matter what type of phone you have. But the premise of the app is really to do resistance band training. And it's set up to be easy. There's not going to be 600 different exercises on there. There's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to set something up that was easy for people to follow along. And it's really geared towards, in full disclosure, a set number of people who are busy, single parents, specifically single moms, looking for a workout to fit in with all the other stuff they have to do, practice and all of that stuff. People who are coming off health issues, people who are going through health issues, veterans, folks who are suffering from PTSD, which can be everybody. And the resistance band training is really an awesome way to work out because they're really light, first of all of these are meant to do in your home. So many times when people start working out, they get so afraid to go to the gym. We just talking about same thing with social media. A lot of times the gyms are just hangout to have everybody stare at each other. You waste time walking into the gym, getting to the gym. And I've been to the gym again, I'm nothing against it, but when you can do some of these things at home, it can give you the confidence you need. And so there'll be a new workout every week. And, it's for change. So you'll do your workout 2 or 3 times a week, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're able to do. There'll be 20 to 25 minutes. The following Monday, we'll have a new workout. So very excited about it.
Okay. I really appreciate that. I love my resistance. Yeah. I love the gym too. I'm a freak in the gym. I love it so much there. And I also love my resistance bands, especially like when I'm traveling or I'm not going down. Like I live in the mountains. So unless I'm going down, I'm not going to get to a gym. Yeah. So, and as my life continues to unfold, my goal is to not go down ever unless I need something very specific. Yeah. So I'm getting, more and more into my home workouts. Right. Yep. So, and then of course, a lot of my moms who are struggling with getting their exercise in. This is one of the biggest things I hear from my moms is, I don't have time And, the reality is the dishes are always going to be there.
That's right.
Don't do the dishes. Instead, turn on your resistance. What is it called?
Resistance assistance.
Resistance assistance.
Yep.
Yeah, resistance assistance app.
Yep.
And take that 25 or 30 minutes while the baby's down asleep
Yep.
and just use your band in the middle of your living room. Like it's fine. It's great. And it works perfectly. And it's just the activity of taking action over and over and over again that get the results. It's never going to be like a one-off and you're healthy again. It's
right.
how you live your life.
That's right. And I'm, I worked out in the gym for several years too. And if this at least gets you to the point where you feel comfortable and confident to go to the gym, even better. So, totally agree. Yeah. The dishes will always be there is right. Trust me, I have to do them too. And,
right.
You can say that about a lot of stuff though. You got to make the time to do it. So, and you can check all that out at revealinghealing.net. That's revealinghealing.net. And, yeah, I'm very excited about it. And away we go.
Yeah. And I think, Ryan, just real quick before we go, you do have some checklists on your website. Is that true?
Yeah, I do. Yep, I do. So I created just some easy checklists just to get you thinking. One is how to burn your stress off. I'm a big believer in converting your stress into power, how to keep yourself motivated, how to use a workout with resistance bands, how to get yourself ready for the resistance band training, and then how to get through a health crisis. And, one of the main things I've found with a health crisis that really can help you is just staying organized, preparing. And it can really do a lot of good things for you to help you succeed. So thank you for asking about that. And those are on the homepage of revealinghealing.net. It's free. And when you subscribe now, you get a free gift as well. We're into that now too. So very excited.
Uh-huh. That's very cool, and it just dawned on me. This would probably also be supportive for people who maybe not have their own illness, but maybe are caretakers or have a parent or a child who's sick.
Yep. And that's
awesome stuff.
And that's a real growth, 10,000 baby boomers retiring a day for the next 18 years. Think about that. So it's the world be changing. So got awesome stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate you sharing what you shared and all your offerings and for supporting my community in the way that you're doing.
Well, I thank you very much for having me on, Brandy. I really appreciate the time. Thank you to what you're doing with your podcast as well. I've listened to some of your episodes, and I hope in the next year we're both at the top, and we can say we were talked to each other 12 months ago. So I look forward to listening to this, and
that will be fun.
Yeah, and
that will be fun. Maybe we'll see each other at PodX or something.
Exactly. And I just for all of your guests, do not be afraid to get out of your comfort zone and try stuff. Just try it. Just do it. Don't be afraid. You live one time. Okay, maybe there's more than that, but you get this one, worry about this one day at a time.
Yeah. And even if you're afraid, do it anyway.
That's right.
Or call somebody for support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was afraid to start my podcast.
I think but maybe you get into it and then you get to interview all these cool people and be around and you listen to these things. It's awesome. You learn, you got to get yourself pushing yourself to the next thing. It's really just a whole cool environment. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
Have a great day, and we look forward to chatting with you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Brandy.
All right, ladies. Yep. There we go. And do whatever it takes to turn your soul on. Thank you for tuning in to Turn Your Soul On Radio. If you're finding yourself living a more inspired life because of this show, help spread the light. Share this episode with every woman you know looking to live their lives a little more on fire. I'd also be grateful if you headed over to iTunes and left a heartfelt review, which really helps the growth of the show. I'd also like to invite you to deepen your connection with our community by joining our private Facebook group, Turn Your Soul On. And if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot us an email at admin@drbrandyvictory.com. Thanks so much for being here today, and I'll talk to you next time. May your soul be turned on.
This podcast is for information purposes only. Dr. Brandy Victory is not a medical doctor, and the views and statements expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Dr. Brandy Victory and the producers, disclaim responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.